everybody, and welcome again to another TTF Talks. It's our great pleasure today to be able to welcome Grant Hunt, the CEO of Voyages, one of Australia's premier resorts, and probably the leading figures in Indigenous tourism here in the country. Welcome, Grant. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Margie. It's great to be here.
Thank you. Okay, well, let's get into it. You've been in the tourism industry for a very long time. Have you ever seen anything like the situation we're now in? Is there any parallel you can draw with previous experience?
Thanks for reminding me of my age, but no, yes, the answer is no. This is unprecedented as that overused word in this pandemic we find ourselves in. So, I mean, I think Ansett, the collapse of Ansett for us and regional Australia was probably the biggest impact to date because we lost so much air capacity virtually overnight, and it took a very long time to rebuild that. So it had about a year's impact on the business. But this pandemic is likely to have years and years of effect on our business and other businesses around the country.
And, you know, the situation is, you know, really different for you as a regional operator too. You know, I mean, if you're in the cities, you've probably got a tap of locals who'll turn back to the hotels and other things pretty quickly. But if you're in a regional location and a very special one as you are, it's going to be more difficult, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, first of all, we find ourselves at Ayers Rock, one of the largest resorts in the country, in the middle of a biosecurity zone because we're located close to an Aboriginal community. So that alone provides a level of onerous restrictions on us that other places and tourism operations don't experience. Then we've got the issue of aviation and air access. Without that, we don't survive. So we need a number of things to happen for us to get back in the game. First, biosecurity, then the border restrictions being lifted in the NT. The national park's got to reopen because that's been closed. That's a Commonwealth park. And then, of course, aviation access will need to rebuild to a level that will enable us to operate sustainably. You know, a flight a day from one city is not going to cut it. So we need to be careful about how and when we reactivate.
So, you know, we're all in the midst of COVID-19, but for the tourism industry, you know, this started much earlier with the bushfire piece. And for many people, they wouldn't really understand the impact that the Australian bushfires actually had on your organisation, which, you know, many people would say is an awful long way from where the fires were. Yeah, true.
Look, we've got to stop that, I think, as an industry somehow, at least address it. The whole notion of the whole country being shut when an isolated incident occurs, as tragic as the bushfires were, they're essentially restricted to about 3% of our country. The same happens in cyclones and floods in far north Queensland. You know, the rest of the world thinks that the entire state is affected. So we need, as an industry, I think, to find a way to address that so that the industry can continue on and hopefully provide even greater assistance to then the localised areas that are affected. But when we're all shut down or virtually adversely impacted, it makes it very difficult to contribute.
Just from a brand perspective, thinking back on the bushfires, we were all facing the prospect of having to do massive brand revival of Australia and reinvention after the bushfires. Now, almost, you know, there's a bit of a question that the way the country has handled the COVID-19 piece may, in fact, be a big positive for the Australian brand going forward. Do you think that's the case?
Oh, definitely. This country's ahead of the game. The government, let's face it, whichever side of politics you're on, has done an outstanding job. They won't get everything right, and I think it's unreasonable for people to expect that they will. But I think the leadership that's been shown and the job that they have done has been outstanding. You can see that in our numbers now. And I think the rest of the world, certainly in the industry you and I are in, are looking to us for ways out of this pandemic and out of this crisis. So I think it's going to do a lot of good for our global brand, particularly in a disaster and crisis response situation. But I think even looking back to the bushfires, we've learnt a lot. That was probably the first major issue for the country since the rapid emergence of social media. And I think one of the lessons that we took out of it, certainly I did, is that we can't allow the misinformation that gets away from us so quickly in social media. A lot of it well-intended, all the movie stars and, pop stars and so on with billions and millions of followers, thinking they're doing the right thing, but they only have a little fraction of the information and they peddle it out there on their sites. And of course, it runs away from us. We need to be better at reeling that in and countering that in a respectful way.
Absolutely. So getting back to the now and what makes us match ready, if you like, to be welcoming visitors, etc. again, what are the sorts of things that you've had to do within the resorts to make it comply, the sorts of standards that we're going to take to government and say, this is how we're going to operate, you can trust that we're doing it this way?
Look, first of all, what we've got to do is survive. And I fear for many businesses around the country if this goes on too long. Look, we've obviously had to batten down the hatches. We've closed all of our businesses, first time in history for Ayers Rock Resort, 36 years. We've had to stand down staff, which has been the most heartfelt and uncomfortable, disappointing, sad thing that I've had to do. Of course, react with the measures that are expected of us as an operator in this environment, including continuing to deal with the 600 or 700 people that I've still got resident at Ayers Rock Resort. My staff that have nowhere to go, their families, public servants, police, medical, national park staff, etc., etc. So we're operating a little community resort, if you like, and we're applying best practice standards to that. Social distancing, obviously the hygiene standards are top of mind in everything we do. Appropriate table placings in restaurants is something we're looking to do in the future, but at the moment it's all takeaway. So we're already applying those measures. We've ordered the sophisticated temperature taking devices, and they'll all arrive soon. So we're doing everything we can to get ready for a new world.
And look, interestingly enough, I think one of the things that seems to be coming to us, particularly from the high yield part of the market, and interestingly enough, the youngster part of the market, is that one of the reasons they go overseas is for unique experiences. Now, if they're not going to be able to go overseas and have a unique experience, your locations offer, probably some of the most unique experiences anywhere in Australia, particularly with this, with the Indigenous tourism element. Do you see that as being a big plus?
Yeah, certainly. I think we're well placed, and what we're seeing from the research and the customer sentiment around the country is that this has really made people think. I think they're going to not take travel for granted. I think they're going to cherish every opportunity they get. They're going to look and research into where they're going and what they're going to get out of it. They're going to look for more meaningful and engaging, authentic experiences. And we offer all that at Ayers Rock, not only from an Indigenous cultural point of view, but with the magnificent landscapes and the great open skies that we have. But there are a number of other locations around Australia that also deliver on that. Cape Leveque, the Kimberley, the west coast of the Pilbara, other places, Kakadu in the NT, of course, Cape Tribulation and places like that in far north Queensland. So Australia has a plethora of unbelievable locations that Australians really need to get out and discover.
So just before we end, let me ask you this. If you had a message for government right now about the industry and where we need to be and where we need to go, what would it be?
Look, trust us. We're best practice operators. The hotel industry, I think, are more conscious than probably anybody in a normal day, in a normal circumstances, of our responsibilities. And I know a lot of these cases have come off cruise ships. They have a very challenging, confined environment. I don't believe that there's been a case come out of a hotel. I may be wrong, and I stand corrected if I am, but we already operate at very, very high standards. I just hope that they don't allow this kind of, what I probably reverently call the no man's land between when we get it under control and when we get operating again, because that's the time that businesses will go under. And we need to shorten that period up through really strong practices, really strong management plans, which we're all getting together. I talk to my colleagues in the business every day, and we're already documenting the things that we're doing and we see that we'll need to do in the future. We will need the social distance. We will need to continue to serve meals in a particular way. Buffets are probably gone for a very long time, perhaps ever. in the way that we've known them in the past. We're ready for that. And the government, I just hope they'll give us the trust that we deserve and let us get on with it, because people are really looking to get out of this cabin fever mentality that we're all in. They want things to look forward to. They want to dream and then plan and then book and then go. And the sooner we can do that, I think it really helps the psyche of the nation and addresses mental health issues and a whole bunch of other things that are related to these sort of experiences that we offer.
Thank you very much, Grant. I think it's an incredibly difficult time for the industry. That's very obvious. But at the same time, I think it's turning into a period of great innovation. And I think that's got to be good for the industry in the long term.
Absolutely, yeah. We're using the word reimagine, and I hear that a lot around my industry. And we're all looking at this as an opportunity to advance digital transformation in our businesses, look at how we harness technology, do things better, smarter in the future. And that'll include a whole raft of, as I've mentioned, of operational considerations, which will go towards ensuring trust and protection of our guests.
Thank you again, Grant. Great to talk to you today, and take care and stay safe.
Thank you. All the best.
Thanks.